Hey, welcome back to the Globe Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. Thank you all for joining. All right, so now let's welcome Laura to the Globe Girl podcast. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks so much. Hi, how are you?
Good. Well, let's go ahead and dive in because I'm so excited to talk to you today. Let's tell the audience out there a little bit about you and what you do, who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Laura Hunter Drago. I am a filmmaker. I produce, I write, and I'm sort of a former, I guess, actress is the way to word it. But yeah, I make a lot of female-focused content, and very passionate about getting women into new roles in the entertainment industry. So that's kind of my little world.
Yes. And so that is a perfect segue into your film, To the New Girl. So you worked with an all-female cast and creative team. So let's talk about that. And I just have to know, did you get any pushback when you went to present that idea?
Sure. Yes. So for the movie To the New Girl, which is out now, streaming pretty much everywhere, Tubi is probably the most well-known spot to find it. But we're also now on YouTube on a channel called Created by Women, which is really cool. The film was made by an all-female cast and an all-female crew. And in terms of the pushback, we ran a Kickstarter back in early 2016. So this has been like a long process to get the movie made, very low budget. And during our Kickstarter was really the only time that we even had a little bit of pushback. Honestly, I think we were expecting more, but it wasn't that bad. We had a lot of really more support from a lot of our like camera vendors and lighting equipment, things like that were willing to kind of help a team of all new women out. But yeah, we got some people, men, of course, on Twitter who were, not thrilled, or that they were saying we were excluding men from the process, which, I guess I can understand, but we were intentionally excluding them in this instance, not to be cruel, but just to give opportunities to a group of people that isn't always as represented, especially behind the camera and cinematography and producers and writers and all of those crew positions. There are women that obviously work in Hollywood, but the percentages, if you look them up, are still extremely skewed towards men. So we were, that was our goal, was to just shine a little bit of a light on that. And especially for women that are just kind of starting out in their careers. So that was something we were happy to have the opportunity to do. But it was funny, just the time period that we made the movie in. So much has happened just in like the public discussion in the last 4 years in terms of like equality and representation and things like that. So I think it's been an interesting time to make the film, because when we were doing the Kickstarter, that discussion hadn't really started happening as much yet. And now that the movie's out, people I think are a lot more aware of the world and of those inequalities. And so I think that helped us to not have pushback. I think people in general have been more open to the idea. So that's great.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I love your trailblazer. And it is, you have to be intentional in some ways. I mean, when you are thinking about underrepresented groups, and women are underrepresented in the industry, like you said, behind the cameras and writers. And it's great that you were able to give them opportunities. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. Now, let's talk about this movie. So first of all, I saw that it was on Tubi and I was like, no, wait, I want to talk to her first. I want to talk to her because sometimes I think it helps to understand the background of why someone decided to write this story, to tell this story. Right. So this movie has been honored at several film festivals. So congratulations, first of all, to you and your team.
Thank you.
But it's a movie about moving on from a breakup.
Yeah.
So please, let's tell us about the inspiration and the background.
Yeah, so I will say I did not write the movie. I produced it, but one of my very best friends, long time best friend from high school, Samantha Mocker, wrote it, and so I don't want to totally speak to her inspiration, but I do know that what she has talked about in the past is that she went through a divorce situation, and this kind of inspired the film, and just also hearing stories from other women who had been through difficult breakups and how they move forward. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting concept. The movie is essentially the idea that these women, almost in the vein of like what you would see on stage at a stand-up performance, but it's women who've come to stand at a microphone and read a letter that they've written to the new lover in their ex's life, and just all the things that they feel, the advice that they have, which runs, all over the place in the movie. Some of it is very heartfelt and some of it is very angry. So, you definitely get the range of emotions and the different experiences, but I think it's all about how women specifically process that break in a relationship. So that's where sort of the impetus comes from.
I think that's definitely a very interesting take on like a breakup, because a lot of times, women, break up. And like you said, it's how we process moving on, because you get the range of people saying, being very angry, depending on the reason why you decided to break up with your partner. You get the range of like anger, and then you get the range of, people a lot of times thinking like the fear of missing out, that I was with this person when they were like this, and then now they've gone on and moved to someone, and now they've reached that next level. And I helped them get there, so you kind of.
So true. That's so true. It's funny, because I think I've never written a letter to a new girl in any relationship. It's a funny idea. I mean, I've certainly thought about it, especially since making this movie. Like, what would I have said? Or like, could you have warned someone? Like, just run.
Right. Go the other way, girl.
Go love yourself. But I have written letters that I haven't sent to people that I've ended relationships with, or relationships that have ended. I have written some unsent letters that, were very full of emotion. And so I think that the film for me kind of makes me laugh at just this idea, because I know we've all been there, we've all had that moment of like, you almost have like no recourse, or you're not in communication with someone anymore, and you just like have to let them know how you feel. And this is just like all of that unleashed, in one night in a little theater. So I think that's pretty cool on both accounts. You writing the letters that were unsent, it's very like therapeutic.
Feels like, I hope you've got them tucked somewhere. I mean, I just had like the flash of To All the Boys I've Loved.
I love that. I loved those books, and I loved that movie. The whole series is great. But actually, funny enough, that it was a therapist who suggested I write that letter that I'm thinking of, and I do definitely still have it. It's like 25.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great idea. I think people listening, watching, you can take that as a way to like help you to process your feelings.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I think often it's something that does not need to be sent. You don't need to have the conversation with the other person, but for you to just get it out and be like, this is the real.
Yeah. And just move on.
But then, you could just set it on fire afterwards, really.
So now, have you heard any or received any feedback from any women out there who have watched the movie and have said, you know what, I'm going to do that?
I haven't heard anybody say that they're going to write a letter. That would be interesting. If anyone ever did that. We did a thing on Valentine's Day, like for Galentine's Day last year, where we screened online and like had a chat going. And there were a couple of people in the chat that had been through a breakup recently that were saying, oh my gosh, this made me feel so much better, made me laugh. And just that universal feeling of, we all go through these emotions and just to be able to get them out. I think also as women, we're taught maybe not this generation that's coming up, but it's certainly in my generation, this idea that we're not allowed to express when we're upset or when we're angry, or we have to just sort of put on a face and not tell the story.
Be strong.
Right.
You have to be strong, carry on. Don't let them see you down. And I mean, which is probably the reason why a lot of us are, had to go to therapy later in life. Because
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and especially like if you're in a situation that's like emotionally abusive and then you feel like you can't then voice your experience, I think giving a voice to those experiences, however you do it, whether it's through art or anything like that, is so important. And it's something that we've been kind of taught not to do. So I do think it's an interesting idea that maybe one day when like the pandemic is completely over, we'll try to organize some sort of event where we can get people to come and read their own letters. I then will do it.
I think, because I think that would be great. I mean, and even if I bet if you even did something virtually, maybe and got women, to come on and like just write a letter, or people even just coming in to listen. I mean, if you could get some people, you never know, that could be very like helpful. And, it just promotes that sisterhood, right? Yeah. That, we all go through things.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And it's certainly okay. Like I'm big on like just being transparent with people about your experiences, because I mean, we all have had things to go well. We've all had relationships that go bad. You can be in a relationship, like every day is not sunny and rosy. I mean, and somebody else may need to hear what you've gone through, and it might help them. It might help them take a step to walk away. It might help a step to go, that dude sounds like that guy, I love when there are opportunities to be more transparent and authentic with people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think community is so important. And you're right that when we can have the conversations, there's nothing like talking to somebody that's been through a similar experience to you, and realizing like, oh, I'm not alone in this, kind of relationship trauma or any kind of trauma. When you meet somebody that's been through a similar thing, you often also realize like if certain types of relationships, like there are patterns in people, and if you start connecting with other people that have been through similar things, you'll see that like, oh wait, this is like a lot of people actually have been through this type of thing where someone has like ghosted them, or somebody it's not, we live in a world where there are many, many repeated patterns. So there's a good reason for community building there.
And I always say, when when these people have this pattern of doing certain things, like it's important for the woman to know that it's not you. And that, guess what? While you're over here working on yourself and becoming like stronger and more fabulous by the day, this person is still running from something that they probably need to like have a discussion. They need to write a letter. Yeah. Because, it's still being, and I think too that the letters, with this story, I think it also allows for even still giving some form of grace to that other person, because I think that women, no matter how angry we are about something, we still find it in ourselves to feel empathy for what someone else may be going through, because they didn't get that way just because they are a bad person.
Sure.
They got that way because they've experienced their own set of things. Right. So that's the awesome thing about women, because it's like we always can find that in ourselves to be empathetic to somebody else.
I completely agree. And I think it's this, the ability, that's such a big part of healing. From anything, is to find the empathy and the good in the other person and what you were able to learn out of the relationship. I've never had a relationship end that at the end of it, I didn't think like, you know what, I learned so much. I grew from that. And I think it's like what you're saying, like you can't run from that stuff. You have to like live in it and and have the full experience for yourself. And then when you do that, that's when something really beautiful comes out of it. So, even like with Samantha, who wrote this movie, she went through some experiences, and people that she knew had gone through experiences, and something really interesting came out of just the part of working through it, the hard part that, sometimes people don't want to do, but if you do the hard part, you definitely can come out on the other end much better.
For sure. Yes. Now I know. So you mentioned earlier in your career, you were an actress.
Yeah.
Now, were you an actress because you wanted to be an actress from the start, or did you always want to produce?
No, I had never really even considered being a producer. I don't even think I knew what a producer did when I was younger. Yeah, I started acting from a very young age, like 5, 6 years old.
Okay.
Doing like theater in school, and then like professionally in my area and stuff like that. And then I went to college for acting in New York, and so that was really my big focus, really a huge part of my personality, like for a very, very long time. And I don't know how to explain like the shift for me, but I realized that I for me needed to be more about working with other people and helping other people, and acting for me made me feel so focused on myself that I stopped enjoying it. And so I think in a way I outgrew that facet of my personality, and not that I'll never go back to it, never say never, but I have been so enjoying this process of just being hands-on and in creating things and hiring people, and then getting to see them do what they love. For me is just I get so much out of that personally. And then it's also easier for me to promote those things, because I don't feel like I'm this, self-absolved, like I'm like, no, I need to help these other people. And so it's opened a lot of different avenues for me. I think when I was pursuing acting, I, for about 10 years was doing the like audition circuit, and really, you go through a lot of rejection and just all sorts of different difficulties that I think are pretty commonly known to that field. And I just needed to do something different. And so I started doing it, and it's been really great. So yeah, I think it's nice to shift focus sometimes and not feel, what I think, honestly, when I was so obsessed with acting. And I think sometimes when we hold on to things too tightly, we love them too much, almost like with people, that it doesn't work. You have to be able to sort of loosely hold. And so I think that's been a big learning process for me, but it's been ended up in a good place.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you, hearing you even just talk about it, I mean, it's evolution. It's evolving into the next phase of your life. And I mean, and look at what you're able to do. I know it's really important to you to be able to create opportunities for other people, especially women. And it's so funny to hear you talk about when you say, oh, and you call me an actress. I mean, you've been acting, you're professionally trained. You've been acting since you were 5, but yet you're very humble about the fact that you're good at what you do. So I think that like says a lot about you and the type of person that you are. Now, let's talk about, because you did start out in acting. Why is it so important for you to create space for women in the industry?
I think a big part of my frustration when I was acting was the type of roles that I would get the opportunity to audition for were often really not creatively exciting to me. It would be like the girlfriend who said hello and then was gone, or a waitress, or just didn't feel fulfilling. And that I also have I've had a strong community of women around me for most of my professional career, and I saw them all go through the same frustrations and just this feeling, even for women that I knew who were directors or writers. I did a lot of work with AFI, which is the American Film Institute, and they have a lot of students who come up out of that program, and I would do their like maybe their first or second year project, and then I would see the men graduate and get all of these huge things, and very often the women not the same experience, or they would have a harder time funding their thesis, things like that. And you start to see the inequality over and over again and realize that it frustrates you. And I've always been a very, focused on like feminism and interested in that as a, women's content has always really interested me. But then just to see the discrepancies in the industry and how much that impacts what we see on screen, because there aren't a lot of women who are at the top level of producing, you don't see as much content that's geared towards them because, people make what they're interested in. And that's just human nature. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's that we need to have more voices. And it's the same with people of color. Like we need more of those voices in those top positions that we can, have our kids watching themselves on screen and not always seeing the experience of, the same thing we've already seen a million times. So that became very, very important to me. And I, it was really born out of just seeing both myself and people around me and their frustrations with the industry.
Yes. Yeah. And so obviously, within the industry, women probably have often been pitted against each other, fight, if you're trying to get same roles or, but what advice or can you give to women out there, just because this is not just related in the entertainment industry, it's all industries in life, about, like focus less on competing with each other and more on collaborating with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're right too, that this is not just the entertainment industry. This is everywhere, that we need to be like aware of this. And I think there's a couple of things I would say about it. The first is like, I think, question where you're getting the feeling that you need to compete. Like, is it coming from something society has instilled in you? Is this the patriarchy talking that they're, and I think where that feeling and that fear, and the need for competition comes from is this idea that there isn't enough to go around. There's one part for a girl, even in my like high school theater program, the plays that would get produced just really by nature of what was available, there would be like 10 male parts and maybe 1 or 2 female parts, and we had more women in the department, so it was just by nature more competitive. And that that's a tiny microcosm of what happens then in the wider industry. And so it's true, there is scarcity, that's part of what we have to change. But outside of that, I think you have to develop this feeling that like what is meant for me will find me.
Exactly.
And so don't feel, just because someone else gets something does not mean that you will not get something. And I think this is something that it takes a long time to learn. I was horrible about this when I was 21. I did not understand it. I had so much feeling of jealousy and also just like anxiety over, would I find my place in this industry? And it just took some time and, being humbled over and over again and just understanding that like, I am so excited now when anybody that I know or any woman or anybody that I feel like, oh yeah, like, oh, great. Yes. They just got something huge. That's awesome. Like just to the shift for me from feeling that, competitiveness to just the excitement for everyone is that's been totally life-changing. I think we all need to find a way to get there. It is hard. It's really hard when you're young too. I think part of it is just, the way we're brought up and, we're taught to kind of like be the best and get the thing, get your thing. Just take a breath. You run your own race. Like, we'll all get there one day, wherever it's going to land. And it's also not life or death. None of this stuff, I would go out for roles where it would be down to me and a couple other people for something huge. And that really did when I was 21, 22, feel like, oh, this is my whole life is on the line here. That's not true. And I think so much of it is you have to take a little bit of control of your own destiny.
Exactly.
We now can, everybody's got a cell phone, TikTok, Twitter, all of this stuff. We all have the ability to like put our own content out now, podcasts, do that. don't wait always for the phone to ring, because if you start doing things like that and making your own way, more things will come to you. Like,
exactly.
It has to happen.
Yeah, because chances are they're not just going to stumble upon you. Like, nobody's going to just stumble upon you. But I love you dropped a lot of nuggets there. Lots of nuggets, Laura. But there were so many things, like you said. I mean, I think even, you think that it's the thing that women evolve, from. And, like you said, 2021 for you. But I mean, I, experienced being people that are, still 30s and up who are still sort of in that, like, well, there's only one seat.
Yeah.
And, and so it's just like, no, we don't have to like look for a seat at that table. Just we should be creating our own tables.
Yeah.
And, and that, that's one of the things, like when I started Glow Up Girl, like that is the most important thing for me, is to be able to celebrate other women, to amplify the voices of other women who, and people who people may not have heard of yet, and they're behind the scenes, like killing it. And then it's like, oh, here's an opportunity for you, because that, like, why wouldn't we want to do that? And I do have a hard time. And one of the things I always talk about with people when they want to come on this podcast, I'm like, look, you can come on here, but like, I need you to be honest, transparent, and give like real tips. Like, I don't want to hear about how you just one day you were like working 9 to 5, and then the next day you were just like, now I'm on top of the world. And I don't know, it must have just been my great personality.
It's so true. That's really funny. Good for you. I mean, you're right, though. It is. I think that any true success story is built with a lot of very hard day-to-day work, and nobody wants to say that, but you're not. You would much rather be on a house that it took you 10 years to build, that has a foundation and brick by brick, than you want to be standing on top of a house of cards, because anybody can blow that down. Yeah. Like, if you built it and you did it and you did the work every day, nobody can ever take that from you. I don't care what happens or what level of success you get to, whatever you have worked for is yours. So, you know, I think this idea of like, oh, I want to be plucked out of obscurity, like, you kind of don't, because that's a slippery, very icy line you're standing on. You know?
Like, just build, build slowly, and build something on a firm structure. Like, I know, hearing all the time, like, I work in my day A job, I work in marketing.
Me too.
And so, oh, fantastic. And so it's like, you're trying to tell people, obviously, like, when you look at social media, right? I mean, social media changes every day.
Yep.
And there's something that's going to be doing, like, I mean, there was one moment when reels were all the rage.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, and then, all right, well, we don't kind of really care about reels because we still rather do TikTok, keep your reels Instagram. And so it's like one of those things where people are like, oh my gosh, I just really want to get my follower count up to da 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 da. And what do you think about buying like followers? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you could do that, but wouldn't you rather like get people that really are interested in what you are talking about and really want to be a part of your community? Because you're going to get all those people, but then those people are never going to say anything. They're never going to talk back to you. You're never going to know what your true audience need is because you just bought some followers.
It's so funny. I was just watching the HBO documentary Fake Famous. Have you seen that?
Oh, I haven't seen that. Let me write that down.
Yeah, you'd probably be really interested in it because it's all about what you're talking about, and just the different ways that people look at social media and how you can kind of prop things up, and all of our perceptions are so skewed about each other because we're curating these little perfect worlds. And I'm a person that I don't like the like full hate on social media. I like get annoying when people are like, oh, I don't need that. And it's like, you know what? Okay. There have been good things that have come out of this. There's always good and bad. This is a world of gray. Like we have been able to keep in touch with people through all of this virtual pandemic world because of social media a lot better. A lot of cultural, like very important social issues have come to light because
Yes.
now there's video and people can
Yeah.
really see what happens. And that's really important. So you got to take the good with the bad.
And also, I mean, like you can watch TikTok and watch people like, like I'm not an active TikToker. But I can watch it for hours. I am definitely the video of the people that start and it's 4:00 and you got to get up at 6 and you're like still looking, but because I am just so in awe of the creativity.
I totally agree. I'm the same way. I think that generation of like the young people, and not that it's just young people on TikTok, but many of them are very young. And I am so in awe of their comedic timing. They're so smart. They're very open about their experiences, which I think is so interesting and exciting. I think it'll be when they are my age, I think it's going to be really interesting when they're like running for office, because they're going to have already said it all and there's going to be so much noise that
you already know.
So focused on this nonsense stuff anymore. And then I also think even just their like filmmaking skills, like editing and lighting and quick changes and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a whole generation of insanely creative, talented people that I'm the same as you. I'm curious every day what people come up with. And I laugh my butt off.
It's so funny. I mean,
so good.
And it's, like you said, it's like removing those like stigmas of like, I remember we were working on some videos for this virtual conference that we have in a couple of weeks. And so I just mentioned, I said, well, I think we can I said, there are a couple of TikToks that I've seen. And immediately when I said that, someone was like, oh my God. Like, I don't want to see anybody pointing in the air. And I'm like, have you been on TikTok? Because I'm like, first of all, brands are doing really well on TikTok. I said, but there are also people teaching, educating people on important subjects on TikTok. It's not just humor. There's a range of information. I said, and it's so easy to access, and it's a lot easier than being on a lot of the other platforms. And I just thought about it because I'm like you said, sometimes with that, like the generations, the one generation. So then when I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to pull some links and show you guys. And it was like, one was like, this is funny. One was like this girl talking about like her Sunday routine. Now, I found it to be quite interesting because she had a great like skincare routine in there. Right. She talked about just how she prepped for like the next day of work, and those things are important because when people have like the Sundays and they're like, oh my God, I gotta go to work again tomorrow. And like just seeing how she mentally preps herself to get ready. And so then the one person said well, I think I know way more about so-and-so's Sunday routine. And I was just like, wow, like, no, that is just the old hater. Like you're just being, you should embrace that storytelling.
I think when you're judging someone like that, you have to stop and ask yourself why. Like, what is this trigger in me? That I want to hate on this person for putting themselves out there, like why? Maybe I'm then upset that I'm not putting myself out there more. Like, what is it making you question? Because I think before you go to like, why is she doing that? Well, why do you care so much? Like,
exactly. I'm right there with you. And I mean, I think like, I'm just, like you said, I'm in all of the talent and the creativity. And I just absolutely live for it and love it. And I can't wait. I have to stop myself during the day because I'm like, nope, gotta work. You can't.
I'm the same. Yeah. I am. It's better than TV sometimes. There's some just amazing stuff. And you're right. Like very educational. There's some like great therapists on there that like just quick little tidbits. It's great. I love it. Makeup tips.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's also great. So, okay. So let's talk about advice for anyone out there listening, watching, who is a woman filmmaker, producer, writer. Yeah. What advice would you give them about getting into the film industry?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is find your kind of tribe, your community of kind of like-minded people. For me, it's always been groups of women who are in my field or in related fields. That's been huge for me in terms of just keeping with it. It's nice to be able to have that camaraderie, and then you can also help each other. Sometimes one person has a contact somewhere that connects to someone else. I think, be a person that is about connection, like true connection, not networking, which everybody kind of gives a bad rap. That's not the real thing. It's like, make real relationships, and great things will come out of that. Like, all of the best things in my life are from relationships that I've built long-term, career-wise, personally, and any of it. And then I think too, just, it's like we're talking about TikTok, like, make things, don't wait. There's no reason to wait on any of it. If you're a creative person, don't feel like, oh, my voice shouldn't be out there. That's not true. Look at the world. Everybody's able to put their voice out there now, which is amazing. Do it. Like, write, create whatever you are amazing at, do it and share it with the world in whatever way you can. Don't wait for somebody to say, here's permission, because you don't need permission for that.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, why don't you tell us what is next for you?
So right now, we have To the New Girl is out and available to watch for anybody who wants to watch it. It's on Tubi. And if you want to find out more about the movie, tothenewgirl.com. As I mentioned before, we're just now launched on a new channel on YouTube called Created by Women, which has a lot of other really awesome content made by women in different areas. So check that out. It's cool. Subscribe to it. I have nothing to do with the admin of that, but I think it's really neat. And so we're also doing a podcast, my production company, that's called St. Mary's School for Children with the Stigmata. It is almost like a horror mystery, I guess I would call it, like kind of a ghost story type.
My favorite types of podcasts.
It's fun. It's written by the same woman who wrote To the New Girl, Samantha Mocker. And I actually act in it as a voice actor. So I guess I'm not totally retired from acting. And I edit it and produce it as well. And that has been just such an interesting, we haven't done a whole lot to promote it, but it's been organically growing a lot. And so we're halfway through our first season and we're starting new episodes again in February. So that's a fun one to check out on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen. Yes. And then for me, I'm finishing this week, my last edits on my first feature as a writer. So I'm going to be taking that around this year and then hopefully working on writing some more things and we'll see what's next. This whole pandemic has made it, as you know, very hard to totally plan for the future, but I'm definitely trying to create as much as I can.
Awesome. Okay. So how can everyone out there connect to you?
Sure. So LauraHunterDrago.com is my website. You can find me pretty much at that handle anywhere. Just my name on Instagram, on TikTok, which I'm not on a ton, but I'm on sometimes. And say hi. I would love to. And our New Girl, the social media for that is New Girl Film. So if you want to follow any of our updates for the podcast or for the movie, anything like that. Or if you're an actor and you want to submit, or, all that good stuff, say hello. And we like to hear from people.
Awesome. Okay. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I just like to dig in a little bit deeper. It helps us get to know you a little bit better. Okay. So number 1, how do you start the day?
I start the day with a cup of coffee, and then I make a to-do list for the day. If I don't make a list, and if it is not on that list, it's not happening. So that's what I do to start my day every day. And I play with my dog a little bit. She needs morning
of
cuddle.
Course.
I'll talk to my husband too. We'll throw him in there. We like him.
I'm like right there with you. I mean, I play with my dog. My husband, he doesn't roll down to go to work until about 11. So I talk to him about 10:30.
Nice. Yeah. You got to get that in there.
But the puppy cuddles, for sure. All right. Important. What's a song or songs in your playlist right now that you're loving?
I just am starting to make my 2022 playlist because I felt like I needed a new one for the new year.
Yes. Yeah.
So the song that's coming to mind that I've been listening to a ton in the last couple of weeks because I worked it into my screenplay is Kesha Rainbow, which I had never heard before. And it's a beautiful song. It's very inspirational. So if you want some inspiration, check that one out.
Awesome. All right. And last, how do you end the day?
It's not, I wish I could say that I like did yoga and like, wound down and meditated, but that's not true. I usually honestly am watching like a true crime documentary. Like, I don't know why my husband and I laugh about this so much. We're like, why do these murder documentaries comfort us so much before bed? Like, what is wrong with us? But I watch a ton of documentaries. I think maybe because for me, watching fiction sometimes makes me feel like I'm still working a little bit, because that's sort of my area. So I like to watch anything where they solve a crime.
Yes,
I'm in.
I love that. I love that. So, hey, it's about doing the way you end the day should be doing something that you enjoy.
Yes, relaxing.
So, yes. And if that relaxes you, then go for it, girl.
I don't know why it does, but it does.
Well, Laura, this has been such a lovely conversation. I'm so glad that you came on, and
thank you.
I certainly would want you to come back when you've got the next thing you want to share with this audience.
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah. No, thank you so much.
All right. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.